1 in 5 suffer.
Erase the stigma.
Brain difference is not a crime.
Mental health isn't just your problem.
It's our problem.
And now, Mental Health Mondays with Marla and Dave.
Welcome to Mental Health Mondays.
We are
Yes.
Marla and Dave. I am Marla.
Yes, and I'm Dave. So
Don't adjust your screens. We're dressed alike. This is
Yes.
very weird how this whole thing. I
that's
swore in
right.
the beginning of my marriage
We're glowing.
I was never going to wear white pastel
Coordinate.
patent leather shoes like his parents. I'm not doing it. I'm not.
We're
but today, here we
coordinated.
are. I
And
don't
we
know.
have white patent leather belts on. You just can't see it. Anyway, last week we had an amazing conversation with the Hammonds, Becky and AJ, and by we, I actually mean mostly Marla, as I had to run off stage at Carnegie Hall, but I was able to make the last third of the show. They were very transparent. Becky shared how she deals with borderline personality disorder, or BPD, and they shared how they dealt with it together, which is the most important thing, because one of the things that we like to emphasize here on Mental Health Mondays is that whatever brain difference that you might be experiencing, that doesn't mean that it's the end of the world. There are ways to deal with it, and that's kind of how we help erase the stigma. Speaking of erasing the stigma, Marla, what's our slogan?
Our slogan is $1 a day.
Yes.
Helps keep the stigma away.
Yes, just $1 a day. You know you spend way more than that, and you probably have
can't even get a
change
Happy
in
Meal
your
anymore
ashtray
for at least
$1 a day. You know, go on any of the websites. That's either of the websites. Loving Beyond Reason or NAMI San Fernando Valley, and donate. We need you to help us bring content like this. When we come back, we're having a question and answer session with the Hammonds today. Of course, you probably know the Hammonds from A&B Convos Wrestling Edition, which is really taken off, and we're proud of them for that. When we come back, our question and answer period with
AJ and Becky.
Don't move.
Help someone who is struggling by supporting the National Alliance on Mental Illness and be a part of the NAMI effect. Hope starts with you.
All right.
Well, Dave, I want to welcome you back to
Thank
your own
you.
studio, and I want to welcome Becky and AJ back to our studio.
Absolutely.
Because we were a thing. So on a serious note, first of all, I have to say that not only am I happy to have the both of you back, but your show last week was so impactful. I couldn't wait and schedule you in the future. It had to be now.
And you were gracious enough to be available the following week.
Absolutely.
Just on the spur of the moment.
We really are.
It was a blessing. Thank you.
You're
guys.
welcome.
Your testimony, your story was transformative in many ways, and that leads us to almost one of the first questions. Most people with borderline personality disorder aren't really that transparent. How did you arrive at that place and the willingness to be that transparent?
I think for me, it explains so much. It makes more sense. Like I said last week, people were just like, "You're crazy. Oh, she's so crazy," and I was just like, "Yeah, I'm crazy." I just embraced the crazy part without, but that didn't mean anything to me. That's not a diagnosis. That's just saying that I'm different. So to me, the diagnosis helps not only me understand, but I want to help other people understand. So it doesn't make any sense to run away from it, because my diagnosis doesn't define me. My character defines me. You can have a personality disorder, and at the end of the day, your character can still be intact. Yeah. It's affected by the disorder for sure. But I mean, I've been an ambassador for World Vision. I've been an advocate for Slavery No More. So my heart has always been to help other people. And if I can help from this place, then
that works as well.
Yeah.
I have a question that's not, so by the way, we did reach out and we opened up all of our internet portals, and we have several questions. But I specifically have a question that probably maybe you have not heard before, but I want to ask you and AJ to answer this separately.
Okay.
Please tell me 3 things that you really hate to hear when it's in reference, even if it's one. What are the things that you hate to hear in reference of being a borderline or being someone who is different? What do you hate for people to say to you in reference to your issue?
For me, it's ignorant comments like happiness is a choice, which actually was a book written by a psychiatrist, but it's so much deeper than that.
Right.
And I think people like to run with that. They also assume that if you are struggling with mental illness, it means that you're weak.
Mm-hmm.
Where the fact that I get up and continue to choose to struggle, as painful as it is, really is a strength.
You have to repeat that. You get up every day. No, seriously. And,
Yeah.
and you choose every day to struggle. You choose to
To
work through
struggle.
whatever, right. You
Mhm.
understand the pain, but you're going to get up today
Yeah.
and struggle with whatever hit you today.
Yeah, 'cause-
Especially when it would be easier to give in to
get-
some of
to
those
quit.
impulses.
Right.
Just to maintain that control
You
is strength. Takes
well, I've
strength.
done that too, and it's quite miserable. Like I can set up shop in my borderline personality disorder, like Calypso, that's her name, because she's the god of storms. She could wreak havoc, and I could let her loose, but everyone pays,
Right.
including me. So I have to every day try and not just let her loose
Right.
every day.
Well, here's a question that
I went-
someone
well,
sent
hold
to
on.
us
I
online.
wanted AJ
Oh,
to
okay,
answer that
sorry
as
about
well.
that.
AJ, for you, what do you hate? What's the one mischaracterization that you hear that makes you go, ugh?
Get over it. Just get over it. Like you're having a bad day, just get over it. Just shake it off. And it's not that easy, because I'm not somebody that generally deals with anxiety. But over the last few years, I've had a few episodes where anxiety has gotten a hold of me. And I can't imagine what it's like to constantly live in a state of fight or flight all day, every day. Like she said last week, her heart rate is always racing. And for her, it's normal. It's not normal in that respect. So the fact that you have to get over it, you can't just do that.
Right.
People don't really understand. You've got to be a little more understanding and patient, and just take a step back and say to yourself, is there something going on with this person that I'm not aware of, other than just get over it and shake it off?
Well, the rudeness in that type of statement really is that most people, when they go through things, want people to be understanding of them.
Right.
But when someone else is going through something and that is impacting them, then they say, get over it.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? So
long as my life
rude.
isn't inconvenienced, but now that it is, get over it.
Right.
right.
Can't do that.
Well, I have to say this too. You just brought something up, and I didn't say the number, but I have to ask you that again. I have to ask you to repeat. When we left the studio, you and AJ and I stood outside, and we talked for quite a while. And the one thing that just was a shocker is your level of anxiety. And you said that people, this is a quote, people assume always that they say, I go from 0 to 100 like that. And she said they have no idea that I live at 80. And she was talking about her heart rate. And when you told me your resting heart rate, I'm a trainer. I tried not to even I know I said out loud, what the, but I thought I was keeping that on the down low. But what did you say? Do you mind sharing your resting heart rate?
Between 110 and 130.
Resting.
Wow. Most of us, that's
I'm
our target zone.
exercising.
Right.
That's our target zone.
Yeah, my
I'm in
Fitbit thinks I'm working out 80% of the day. They're like, good job. I'm like, I didn't even go anywhere.
I'm going to say, you didn't
just
get
woke
much
up.
sleep. She slept a solid 8. As far as is concerned.
Hilarious.
It's going.
She's,
Wow.
she's getting all kind of reaching goals and medals just by being awake.
So while we're here, and this is probably a question for both of you as well. Someone has written in and asked, how much of your diagnosis did you originally share with your friends and family? Were you always this transparent? And you know what? Looks like we're going to have to put a
Yes.
pin in that and just pick back up on that question when we come back. As usual, time is always flying here at Mental Health Mondays. Don't move.
When Dave and Marla get together, it's hot.
You may not realize it, but these words, often used to describe someone with a mental health condition, can be very harmful. In a country where 1 in 5 people are affected by a mental health condition, it's time for all of us to step up and change the conversation. Just because someone's struggle isn't obvious on the outside doesn't mean they aren't hurting on the inside. We need to see the person, not the condition. Join with me, pledge to be stigma-free.
It's time for the Mental Health Minute with Marla and Dave.
Some have asked what causes mental illness. As far as we know, there is no single cause for mental illness. A number of factors can contribute to risks for mental illness, such as
early adverse life experiences, such as trauma or a history of abuse. For example, child abuse, sexual abuse, witnessing violence, etc. Experiences related to other ongoing chronic medical conditions, such as cancer or diabetes. Biological factors, such as genes or chemical imbalances in the brain, use of alcohol or non-recreational drugs. Having few friends or having feelings of loneliness or isolation.
Here are 5 warning signs of mental illness: long-lasting sadness or irritability, extremely high and low moods, excessive fear, worry, or anxiety, social withdrawal, and or dramatic changes in eating or sleeping habits.
If you or anyone you know, as always we say here on Mental Health Mondays, is suffering from any of these symptoms, please seek professional mental health help. This message is brought to you by Mental Health Mondays with Marla and Dave.
David is a thinker.
I never do anything without thinking about it first.
Marla is a feeler.
I basically wear my personality on my sleeve.
But when Marla and Dave get together, it's like a match dancing with a firecracker.
All right, so I don't know if you remember the question, but I'll repeat it. So someone wrote in and asked, how much of your diagnosis would you share originally with your family and friends? I guess it's kind of speaking of, were you ashamed of it at first, or?
No, I'm an open book because I was already a hot mess and everybody knew it. It wasn't going to be a surprise to anybody that I had a diagnosis. If anything, it almost made me feel like, see, something is wrong.
Right.
But one of the things that I've learned meeting other people with borderline in different support groups is that a lot of us are oversharers. Like, we almost need to over-explain why we are the way we are. Like, we know we're different, so we're trying to over-explain it, I guess. I think that's what's behind it, but a lot of us are oversharers. So.
Now, do you think that there's a distinction between those that accept their diagnosis and those that don't?
I actually don't know a lot of borderline people who don't accept their diagnosis. I think that from what I've seen in the support groups that I've been in online, because the DBT that I need to take is out of my reach financially and not covered by insurance. So I've joined different groups online, and most people in there went to the doctor to say, hey, what is wrong with me?
What's happening?
So they might not have been thrilled to hear it was borderline, and there is a lot of stigma with that. But most people are saying something is off. I need to know what's going on.
Let me tell this is a perfect segue. Let me tell the public this. I'm so glad that Becky just mentioned that. I want you to know. So no one wants to support and help. 80% of mental health professionals won't treat a borderline. She said DBT is dialectic behavioral therapy, and it's an ongoing behavioral therapy that really just helps to deal with to create space so they can identify the trigger, and if I'm wrong, correct me, but identify the trigger and not have the emotional reaction that's just so, for a borderline.
Another way that I would
regulate.
explain it is
Right.
almost like an if-then.
Yeah.
Usually when I feel this, I used to do this, but now when I feel this, I've learned to do something else instead.
So DBT trains emotional regulation, which in most cases of borderline, the emotional regulator is off. It's broken. It's not there. So it's all emotion. So I have to say that because this is why mental health and why David and I do what we do, because we found so many holes with the things that we're experiencing between two children who are adults, that I'm like, man, even when we want to assist, it's not here for us.
Right.
So I have to say that. And she said that just seemingly. And I'm like, oh, well, seamlessly. I need to point that out.
Let's get back to the same question for AJ. Did you originally, was there a time you didn't share as much, you didn't feel comfortable doing that, and now you're more transparent, or has that always been your thing?
I really more so deferred to her. I always wanted to look and see where I had to check her temperature, basically, because there were sometimes she was okay with it, sometimes she wasn't. If we're in a situation where we're meeting new people, she really
You don't want that to be the definition of who you are.
So I really always defer to her and kind of check her.
That's awesome.
Did you ever go to dinner or meet a new friend and say, hey, this is my wife, Becky, with the good hair?
I say it almost daily.
Okay. She's very pretty. I'm just saying, you could have said that. Okay, so go ahead.
Here's another question. How come no one with borderline personality disorder, oh no, we covered that. How do I get my borderline girlfriend to know how much I love her?
Yeah, there's one.
What would be your suggestion?
AJ? Hot seat?
There's a book she gave me a while ago called The 5 Love Languages that a lot of people aren't necessarily aware of. And I would start there. I would get to know who this person is, get to know what their love language is, and then get to know more about how their brain is wired specifically, because doing something to them may not be received the same way as you are trying to give it. We just had a situation over the weekend where we had a miscommunication about something where she took what I was saying and doing one way, and that wasn't my intention. Until it was stated, there was no way for me to know. So it's really learn and study what their love language is, study how their brain is wired, and then come at it that way. I found that works the best.
Wow, that is it's a really level-headed perspective. I'll be honest with you on that one. And how easy is it for you to maintain that perspective? That's another thing. Speaking from man to man.
Trial and error.
Yeah.
Trial and error.
Well, there was a
second
second book, too, that I got him called Learning to Learning to Love Someone with Borderline Personality Disorder, I believe. They could look it up on Amazon, but there are books out there for loved ones who suffer from this so that they could understand it on another level as well.
Okay.
Well, here's a question for you, for both, but I think this is probably going to be directed more at Becky. Is BPD only trauma induced?
No, so they're not exactly sure what causes BPD.
BPD.
Okay,
yeah.
I also
we
have
know what you mean.
dyslexia, so
we know what you mean, girl.
don't mind me. We're just going to say borderline.
It's borderline, right?
What was the question again?
The question is borderline only trauma induced?
Right. So they're not exactly sure. What they do know is that they do believe there can be a genetic disposition. Then they do believe that the environment can also affect it. Like you said, ongoing trauma, like a lot of people with borderline also have PTSD or CPTSD. But there are some cases of people who have borderline who do not have any traumas that they can recall, but they can also be traumatized from, moving, leaving a situation, losing a friend, losing a parent. There are different kind of losses that can also, from what I understand, but the brain can wire differently for all kinds of reasons. So although it is very common to have trauma, there are people without it. And it's also a misdiagnosis sometimes between narcissism and borderline because we share a lot of the same characteristics. Right. But borderline people are usually seeking help, saying, what is wrong with me? Whereas narcissists are saying, it's everybody
there's nothing
but
wrong
me.
with me. Exactly.
It's every room I walk into, every situation I have, there's a problem, but it's not me, it's everyone else. So that's a little bit of a difference.
I didn't even look at it. I didn't look at that as the line of delineation until.
But that's one of the definitions of narcissism.
Well, the self-harm too. Self-harm is very common along borderline, but not among narcissism.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, man, this is enlightening as usual, and we so appreciate you guys' transparency.
Hey, welcome to my world. I'm double enlightened now. This is amazing.
I'm lucky to join your world. We're going to come back with more questions and answers from the Hammonds as soon as we get back from this next little break. Don't move. All right. Well, that fun music means let me start the wave. Boom. There it is. It's poll time, and that was our weak version of a pole dance. Marla, what was
if there were a poll in here, I could be impressive. Don't play games with me.
So now I think I remember
Granny on the poll.
This is about the time that I was getting my computer going when I ran across the street from Carnegie last week. So I think that I'm pretty sure that you guys got this poll question correct, but just for
let's ask them
to
again.
reiterate, Marla, what was the question?
Let's make them say it again.
The question was, how many adults in the U.S. suffer with some form of depression? Your options were 5.8 million, 11.2 million, or 17.3 million.
I think I said B.
I said C.
And you said C.
That's correct.
That's right.
And
so
Becky,
then at least one of you was correct.
Today you're going to have to take the submissive role. I cannot let you swing on my
As
pole
AJ guessed it correctly, 17.3 million adults in the U.S. suffer with some form of depression. That number's way too high. We got to work to get that under control. Marla, what's the poll question for next week?
Okay, I'm going to give the Hammonds another chance.
I got it right.
To be unified. Yes, but together here. What is the number of U.S. adults with schizophrenia? 500,000, 1.5 million, or 3 million? What is the number of U.S. adults that are diagnosed with schizophrenia? 500,000, 1.5 million, or 3 million?
I'm going to say B again, even though it didn't work for me last time.
And I'm going to say A.
Okay.
All right. Well, listen. The Hammonds have this thing down. They're going to leave you guys
pretty good.
They
choose differently so they can actually cover their eyes a little bit. That's pretty good when you get to Vegas.
That's okay. So now we're going to have part 3, so we can bring them back in here and either reward them or shame them right here on our show.
You guys remember to jump on either lovingBeyondReason.org or NAMI-SFV.org and donate. We need you. Matter of fact, we're wearing these cool outfits. They were designed by our son. Right. Pastel is his new line.
Pastel is his new line. We'll tell you a little bit more. Matter of fact, look at our social
media. Hit him up
media.
on social media. Look at our social medias. Support him as well. We'll be right back.
Okay.
There's my mic.
There you
it's
are.
going now. Okay.
Are we in the middle of what?
Were we in the middle of another question as we ended that last segment?
I think so.
I think we were.
One.
Did we?
Did I start or did Marla?
Marla has so many questions. Crazy.
Well, here's another question that someone wrote in. How do you balance your career, your marriage, and your self-care? And is there a time when that is kind of out of balance from time to time?
It doesn't feel balanced to me ever. But the fact that I am an administrator at my job and that we are married, 19 years later.
He's a historian.
Makes me think that I am doing so, but I really do every day. There are days where I wake up in trauma, where it's just playing in my mind and I have to change a channel. I have to consciously just say, okay, wait a minute. I need to do some self-reflection. I need to be present. I'm here, I'm in my bed, I'm safe, I'm next to him, that's not happening, and I have to talk myself into not just staying there, into purposely going somewhere else. And so that is really how I get up, because there are days where I just want to lay in the bed and look at the wall and not do anything. And not that there aren't days that have happened, but every day I just have to make that decision that I'm going to get up and fight today.
It's
awesome.
amazing.
AJ, same question.
Good.
Honestly, for me, it really boils down to how am I, and I had to learn this. It took me a lot of years to get to this point, but how can I best support her? And that could also mean just stepping away. We're saying, I don't want to be alone. I want to be alone. I don't want to be with anybody. Answer this text, respond to this person, I just can't. Whatever it is, I have to do what I can to try to support her, because at the end of the day, it's not going to be, for me, when I was raised, the way that I was raised is you go to school, you'll meet somebody, get married, have 2.5 kids, white picket fence, the dog, that whole thing. They don't teach you and tell you that along the way you may meet somebody that already has kids. You may meet somebody that has had trauma that you're not aware of, and this is going to alter your life plan that you saw for yourself. And when you decide to commit to somebody like that, you have to say to yourself, I'm in it to win it, and I need to do what I can to support them. It's not going to be easy. I've had my tough days. We've had our issues for certain, but we're here.
I have a quick question, right quick.
Before you ask that, I would just make the statement that you also seem to have respect for the concept of commitment itself, if that makes any sense.
Yes.
Because this is not something, your relationship seems so stable, and knowing what you do to create that stability means that you appreciate the commitment.
Yes, because we went through, and that's one of the reasons why I'm glad we're doing this, because we didn't have a blueprint. Just like parents don't have a blueprint. Nobody has a blueprint on how this is supposed to go. We had premarital counseling before we got married, but that didn't teach us half of the things that we learned in real life situations. And thankfully, we were able to come through that, but it took a lot of trial and error to get to this point.
Yeah.
So I don't want anybody to think, like, I used to be a trainer for a long time, and people looked at me and they said, well, look at you. You look muscly and in shape, and I would slide a picture of myself across the desk when I was not. And I said, I didn't get from here to here overnight just because. It took trial and error.
Jump in the broom.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Marla, you had a question.
No, yeah. Mine is just going to be out in the ether for anybody, including Tony Sweet, to answer this at some point. Can anybody explain to me why we all say 2.5 kids? How's there half a kid? Anyway, something just, we all say it. It's like, you know, 2.5 kids and a picket fence.
Shows
like,
that shows that statistically speaking, no one is going to be in that perfect lane. You know what I mean?
No one has a half a kid.
I'm sure that no one would appreciate a half a kid.
All my kids are a whole heart, a whole pocketbook. They're whole, all of them.
All right, so let's jump.
Let me ask the next question. Do people with borderline personality disorder, do you find that they do unnecessary things for attention? I kind of clean that up, but that's the question.
Okay, so man, I guess I don't like all eyes on me when I'm in a social situation where I don't know people. So for sure, I don't bring unnecessary attention to myself in public with strangers because I already don't know who to be. I don't know who you are. I don't know what you're. It's like a whole.
It's very sketchy.
Very, very. However, we are both just really funny, not serious, very lighthearted people.
Right.
Like we quote Friday every day. Like, you know, it's just, you know, so I don't think it's like trying to get attention. I do think that there are borderline people who are very lonely, and so they're hurting, and so they will act out for attention because that seems to be the only time they get any. And I think there was a time when I was younger that I was like that for sure. But I feel like that's something that I have grown past.
There you go. We got a incidental applause there. So here's another question, because I know we're kind of cramming them in here, but you know, we're trying to get to as many as possible, and you might have to answer it on the rebound. But a person is saying, in their experience, most people with BPD are hypersexual. Do you find that to be true?
Yes. But especially when they come from a background of sexual trauma.
Abuse, right, exactly. Okay, well, there you go. Wow. Listen, this they should open their own clinic, library, hotline.
At least write a book.
Hotline.
They need a hotline.
At least write a book.
Definitely.
I would write a book, actually, but that was about when my daughter had cancer, although it did show how I dealt with her cancer, which was hard enough as I'm sure a regular person, but having borderline and dealing with your child was pretty difficult. So that book is out there.
All right. Well, we're gonna get to that.
Tell them how to find that as well as soon as we come back.
We'll be right back.
Bad. What are you doing? You're
Worthless.
Don't trust them. They'll hurt you. You're worthless.
It's pointless.
When the pain of schizophrenia meets hope, everything can change. Help someone who is struggling by supporting the National Alliance on Mental Illness and be a part of the NAMI effect. Hope starts with you.
Well, as usual, and you know what? Thank you so much, Becky, for being so quick with answering that last question. I feel like that
she's just a natural. She's a natural.
Well, first of all, she's
they both are.
Yes, the honesty is what it really is, and you can't. The one thing I'll say is this: that one of the reasons that we had them back, and we will continue to converse with them going into the future on our show, is because you can't fake transparency. AJ put it best last week, Dave. You weren't here, but he was talking about the shattered glass and putting the mosaic back together. And even though it's a beautiful picture, even if it has sharp edges. And ironically, that's one of the things I've said before. I would rather run into the two of you with your sharp edges than have somebody stand before me, which we get a lot of in Hollywood. And it's when you're inauthentic, it's like sticking your hands in grease and coming to me and trying to climb a glass wall. I got nothing for that. So I just
that's
hi and bye, and then I can respect who you are, but I can't connect with you.
Right.
And so we appreciate that spirit of truth seriously in who the both of you are and your transparency and willingness to share genuinely. It's felt.
Absolutely. Now, so we have time pretty much, I guess, for one more question, and this is a perfect question to wrap things up. What do you both hope and wish for the future for each other?
Well, I mean, I don't know if you meant mentally, but
whatever.
I mean,
it's a general question.
We want to be able to entertain and bring awareness full time. So when our YouTube, I mean, we're doing well, but when it gets to the point where we could do that full time and really invest our all into that, we would like to use that platform then to also bring awareness to mental health. So that is our ultimate goal.
Yeah, she and I honestly want people to know that they're not alone. And we bring that on our show. We encounter so many people, adults, who say, oh, you like professional wrestling, or you like this and you like that, and go, yeah, absolutely. Don't be afraid to say that you are this way.
Funny, by the way. I watched.
Thank you. You do?
I did. I watched. I watched.
Oh, we're funny?
Yes, I said it's very funny.
And that's the reason we really, really wanted to come on the show, because of all of the mistakes that we have made. If we can avoid that for people, these pitfalls, and sometimes you have to do that in order to come out on the other side a certain way, and that's still okay. Either way, we want you to know that you're not alone. You can reach out to us, and I want to make sure that we are able to do this together, side by side.
Amazing. One of the things that we keep saying over and over is you guys' transparency is unique. And it's transformative as well. So we support you in that endeavor and wish nothing but a great future for the both of you together. You guys are an amazing couple.
You're forever going to be a friend of Mental Health Monday, and more importantly, Marla and Dave. And if the three of us can get together and rehearse, what you hear in the background is take 6, we can do better than this. This is... I mean, we can.
That's pretty good.
I've learned all the parts. I can help
Marla's, not ashamed.
I can help us.
Afraid to make lofty goals.
Tony and I tried to do it and go on the road. It didn't work out for us because Ebony and Ivory. Then the climate got crazy.
Right, quick before we get out of here, you mentioned a book that you had written. Is it possible for us to be able to buy that?
It was a blog. It was
a blog that was published as a book, but it's called A Mother's Journey Through Childhood Cancer.
Drastic Detours.
Life's Drastic Detours. It's Life's Drastic Detour, A Mother's Journey Through Childhood Cancer. You can look it up on Amazon.
Nice.
Absolutely. And we will
don't forget to subscribe to A&B Convos Wrestling Edition.
Absolutely.
Or A&B Convos by itself if you're just into comedy and not wrestling.
And if I'm just darting through the background like this, just
Awesome.
Thank you guys for joining us. Remember, support all that you see here. Every conversation that we have here on Mental Health Monday is one worth having and worth hearing. You are not in this alone. We are here, and we will bind together, and we will share and change things.
Absolutely. See you guys next week.
Bye.